All right, wonderful. I want to welcome everyone to today's Fireside chat. Today, we're going to be talking about winning more work with better project management. We're excited to have everyone here today. But first, as we move into our slides here, just a second here, that I want to go over our safe harbor agreement. What this is that during the course of this presentation, we may make some statements regarding future events and or statements regarding planned or future development efforts, and we reserve the right to change those events, and that there is no promise or guarantee. But I want to give everyone an opportunity to look at this for a minute before we go on through the rest of our presentation. Okay, next thing, I just want to remind everyone that the line is muted to reduce background noise. So don't be alarmed if you're talking into it and no one's responding. The other thing is, if you have a question, use the question box. And we'll be getting to a lot of those questions during the Q&A. So as you think of it, feel free to type it right at that moment. And the last thing is, there is a link to this that will be provided after the presentation. This is being recorded and will be emailed to all registrants. I have the pleasure today to have Miller Davis company with us today for our Fireside chat, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves. I'm going to kind of go left to right as we see it here. I'm going to have Jack and introduce himself, and then go to Lance and Ariel. So Jack.
Sure, thank you. Glad to be here. Jack Abate, Vice President, Construction Operations. I've been here at Miller Davis for 20 years, and my key role is to make sure that our teams have the resources and tools to get the job done.
Thank you.
Yeah, excited to be here, Tyler. My name is Lance Aiken. I'm General Superintendent here at Miller Davis. Been in the industry for 15, 20 years, and my main role here is I work with all the different superintendents and project managers, project executives in the office to just oversee the projects and procedures that are happening to kind of help that communication.
Wonderful.
My name is Ariel Castillo. I'm really excited to be joining you guys today. This is going to be an exciting conversation, and my title is a Strategic Processing BDC Specialist. I basically work with the innovation department and trying to make sure that our team and everybody that works at Miller Davis has the right tools to get their job done in a better way.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. I'm glad to have you here. I'm Tyler Camp. I'm the Technical Solutions Executive with Autodesk. I also come from industry. I spent 15 years in the construction industry, mostly for a general contractor, and most of which as a project manager. So I'm really excited to speak with everyone today as we go through our journey, as I am your moderator today. Moving into our next slide here, today's agenda, kind of going over it roughly, is why we're here today is to understand the value of digitizing and connecting workflows, reducing rework, mitigating risk, and then how adopting cloud-based technology has improved and optimized workflows with Miller Davis. And then we'll go into our chat, and then we'll have a glimpse into Autodesk Build, and then we'll have our poll and some closing remarks. So moving into our Fireside chat here, I'll stop sharing my screen. Apologize here. So we will go and begin here. I have a couple questions for Jack and Lance and Ariel, but I'm going to start with you, Jack. Can you share some of your past project management pain points that you've experienced by not using cloud-based technology or workflows?
Sure. So here at Miller Davis, we're an older company, 113 years old, here in Southwest Michigan. So we've done a lot of changes over the decades. So we've seen things come and go as time has moved on. As a construction manager, general contractor, one of the pains I had experienced was doing the submittal process. So checking shop drawings. We got a box of red pencils when we started, and we had a sharpener on our desk. And we mowed through those pencils, hand copying 8 times each shop drawing got processed that way. And you had to send 7 to the architect, and then they'd take them, they'd make their notes, they'd make their hand comments, they'd copy them over again, then send them back to us. So that, a shop drawing that went smoothly would take easily 4 weeks to process. Now with the electronic platforms that we have, Reason and Build, that time has been greatly reduced to getting them processed. Just the mail time alone and the electronic stamps and markups have just greatly reduced our time processing them.
Thank you. So really, I heard a couple things in there. One is that it really took a lot of time with the traditional format that you're using before that. You would send it in an RFI and it could take, 4 weeks. I mean, that's a lot of time when you're talking about the project and stopping it and trying to keep it moving forward. Lance, what about you? I'm interested to hear kind of your experience, with workflows before a cloud-based system.
Yeah, Jack hit it a little bit there. It's that lag time, right? And especially when we're in the field and you have questions of things that come up every day and you're trying to lay something out or trying to get the work done and you got to submit an RFI. Before cloud-based, you're taking weeks to get the answer back, or at least at the very minimal, a few days, right? You're writing it up per hand, you're sending it out and you're getting it back. And then you want to make sure that everybody gets the updated documents. You have to get it out to all your trades that are out there as well. So, that lag time was a lot of opportunity for things to get lost, for work to be miscommunicated or installed incorrectly. So that was always a process and, could be a pain of really getting that taken care of. So.
You mentioned lost. So that kind of makes me think, I remember like when I started, 17 years ago, we had a folder for each company and we'd print off the RFI and things like that. I mean, is that, you mentioned things getting lost, is that something that you found with that traditional format, that you're giving printed copies and things were being lost?
Yeah, whether it's lost or the coffee cup spilled on it or your lunch, while you're trying to get work done during that time, any of those types of things can happen, right? And then, okay, now I got to go get another copy, or maybe you handed it to the guy in the field and he set it down and he didn't take it back to his trailer and he doesn't put it in the drawings and update his red line drawings. So now he's building off of something that's incorrect, and that's really just another issue that can happen, another opportunity when you're not using something that is cloud-based software.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I remember a lot of times things like that happening. Ariel, what about you from your side?
Oh, thank you, Tyler. Well, to me, I would say that one of the biggest pain points has to be data recollection. As you know, a project life cycle, it's a big deal, and we can go all the way from design to operations management, and throughout that life cycle, we're getting data through different ways. There's forms, we got papers, we got a lot of information managed digitally through emails and stuff like that. And the problem is that getting that information together, it's not a simple task, and also being able to use that in the future, it's also difficult. So again, think about like going back in time and making sense of all the information that is available. It's definitely a challenging task. So you can see why there's like a disconnect there. Also, the other thing is that if you're not gathering the right data, then we're basically relying on subjective experiences rather than hard data to make decisions that can keep the company moving forward. You can think of, like if we don't have an experienced person available, then you're creating a knowledge gap there.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how you mentioned that subjective experiences, that kind of the traditional format was really tacit knowledge, like that you had to rely really on a few individuals where because you couldn't collect the data. It was just what they had in their tool belt and in their mind that sometimes would be hard to even extract out of it to help you and your teams. I appreciate that. Thank you. So with that, we've kind of talked a little bit about what it was like before. Kind of building off that is like, as you guys have now implemented a cloud-based technology system and workflows, how have some of these past problems led to project management practices today and workflows? How have they solved some of those workflows for you today using that software?
Well, I think, to start with, the process has been transitioning to that over time. It wasn't a switch was not flipped overnight. And so we've gradually started to do things and build on them, and understanding that the workflow, the process needs the workflow and the process need to be aligned, and then we're taking that technology and applying it to those things. It reduces errors. As far as the human errors, takes it out of that, at least some of that stuff. You still have to check things and look at them, but as far as the things getting lost, like Lance spoke to, or just losing data in general, has minimized that. Minimize time looking for things, quicker answers, more accurate answers with more detail with them.
Okay. So, Jack, I kind of like, there's a few things I kind of want to touch on that you talked about. Really, I kind of kept hearing reducing risk, that keeping track of items more easily, having those logs and things like that. I'm kind of interested too, like you as your role of, operations, how is that moving to that really giving you more information?
Well, there's with the technology development, there's been a lot of dashboards developed with different products. And so the dashboard on builds is very helpful. I can go in and get snapshots of what each project team is doing. I can evaluate based on my knowledge and experience. If I see a major discrepancy in the number of shop drawings processed, let's say, and we're into the job by 9, 12 months now, they're still only at 100 shop drawings. I need to go find out why what's going on? Why has these not been processed yet? And so that's one aspect. I used to have a superintendent that would go to this hardware store and buy things, and his wife told me that his file system was his front pocket. And so she would actually do laundry, and then on Friday send all the receipts and invoices back to me so I could go through them all. And so now it's all cloud-based. They're scanned in. It's all digital. So just that alone in itself reduces costs that you may not acknowledge were there, you didn't bill for, and now you can't recoup.
No, that's I have to laugh how you talked about the receipts. I remember being there, and then oddly enough, my wife works for General Contractor, and that's her job, is to collect the receipts and things like that.
Right.
That could be, it's such a hard thing, especially if the jeans get washed and things like that. And more importantly, the risk is you don't get paid, right? On a lot of contracts, you've got to have that backup for your pay application. So the technology's helped you in that way too. That's really interesting. I'm glad you kind of mentioned that, Jack. Thank you. I kind of want to ask a question for you, Ariel, is that what has it been the value of digitizing it for you from your side?
Well, I think it ties back into what Jack was saying. If we think about the biggest benefits, basically streamlining how we're accessing data and how we also get to understand a project. We're basically allowing our employees to self-serve. Therefore, the information they need, they can just grab it whenever they need it. Whatever they want access to, it's available to them. Before, we can think about just having meetings to get people on the same page. And those meetings, they were not necessarily being the most productive. You're basically informing people. This is the status of submittals. This is the status of the RFIs. This is status of a change orders and things like that. And think about the amount of time that was dedicated to manually create a log. It's updating hundreds and hundreds of lines in Excel. So now it's basically you access the system and everybody can see the status of any particular item at any given time. And there's like a timestamp that's also showing everybody what's the status of everything.
Yeah, I like that. I love how you said the self-serve part too, because I think that's a big part of construction, right? Is that accountability and enabling that that you don't have a line of people waiting for the project engineer to print them something off or to ask a question, but more importantly, that they have the latest and greatest information right now, like you said, Ariel, that they're able to get in there, they're able to even find the RFIs, have the logs. Something that used to take time to develop is being done in the background for you. There's a lot of value to that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, we've had people, jobs where the printer didn't work, and so they didn't print the RFI. You say, well, why did you build it that way? Why didn't you print the RFI? I was out of ink, or I was out of paper. It's just.
Oh boy.
So it's like the whole job shut down the moment that printer broke, right, Jack? Like it was mad panic, and everyone calling everyone at Canon printer to come service it right now, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You know, Lance, you know, to build off this a little bit is that, you know, can you talk about how it's influenced you and even maybe avoided rework by having the technology on your side?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of different times that's come into play here, and one of the most recent that I can really think about is, you know, we're in the middle of working on an elementary school, and we had all the exterior walls and steel and concrete was poured, and our framers were on site starting to lay the walls out. Well, we found discrepancies in the dimensions. You know, if you go back before cloud-based technology, and really what we had to do is you go through, you take pictures, or you write it down, you produce the RFI, you send it in. Okay, now you're waiting for the answer to come back. So again, that lag time of getting that answer, do we have to pull guys off site, or do we make a field decision instead of having them pull off site? Do we just say, okay, build it to this dimension, you know, which I'm sure everybody can relate, that's happened multiple times, right? So I'll just go ahead and do it, it'll be fine. Well, 2 months down the road, they go to put casework in or whatever it is, and you got to go back and tear that wall out. You know, with the system we're using now, I was able to take that, put the RFI into the architect in the morning, and within a 4-hour time span, I had an answer back with the proper dimensions, updated drawings, distributed out to all the contractors, and we were building and continuing to lay out that day and kept the project moving. So not only did we avoid rework, but we're avoiding that cost and everything that's associated with it. We're able to stay productive throughout the day. The contractors aren't coming back to you or coming back to my project manager a week later, a month later, asking for, hey, my remo because you kicked me off site. Hey, I need more days because I didn't get to start and I had to go to another job. You know, the amount of times we've had to fight that, you know, over the years is crazy. So, you know, that's a huge benefit to that cloud-based technology we can use. The architect, no matter where they're at in the state or the country, can get that answer back to us right away. So, you know, Tyler, you're out in Phoenix, Arizona. I could send you the answer and get it back in an hour rather than, okay, the mail will be there on Thursday. So it's just.
You're telling me I can't hide, Lance.
Yeah, no one's hiding anymore, that's for sure. So.
Well, so one thing you mentioned, because we talked about earlier, the time it took to get an RFI, you said within 4 hours. Now, we'll say that that's not always the case, right? But that you're able to collaborate in a way that has the ability to make it a confirming RFI because you can get the dimension to reduce that time. Then you mentioned something else, is that people demobilizing. Mm-hmm. So we're talking money. Yeah. Because one, when you have to stop for a space, production stops there. You try and do everything you can, but you now have to have some remobilize. You're looking at premium time, lost production, and then you've mentioned the arguing part, as if that's, you know, our hobby to begin with, is arguing, right? To get people to come back and do things, and you know, it's no one's hobby. And so I think that's really interesting. A strong point is that if you can keep people there, it's easier for you, but then also you care about your trade partners too. You know, they've got 20 jobs they're trying to go, and so they're planning on what they bid, that the schedule that you gave them, and that's kind of your job as the general contractor, right? Is that you cherish that and you respect that, and you're building stronger relationships. Am I hearing that correct? I don't mean to put words in anyone's mouth, but that's kind of what I heard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a huge deal for those subs that we're working with. You know, they're going to want to bid our jobs. They're going to want to come out and work with us as a company because they know what our systems are, right? So if they know you have 10 weeks, or you take 3 weeks every time to answer an RFI, and they got to put in 5 mobilizations because they're coming and going, you know, that just drives costs up. That drives that they don't want to be there. They don't know what your schedule is going to be. So the more we can stay consistent and get the answers when we need them and keep them on site and keep them working, keep them productive, it's just beneficial to them. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you. And then, you know, I feel like we kind of talked about some of the cost benefits there. You know, I appreciate that part. But I kind of want to look into how, with Lance and Jack on this here, now that you've had a little bit of time with software, how has it maybe helped, you know, reducing rework? How has it maybe influenced winning work in the future and having that information? I'll start with you, Lance, and then Jack, if you want to add to it, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think, you know, like you said, we touched on it a little bit there, is helping reduce the amount of costs you have associated with a job by being productive the entire time. So your productivity rates go in a good way to where you're able to put less hours and get the same amount of work done compared to, you know, having to have all that extra time of going through RFIs and documentation. So it really helps you sharpen your pencil up and get those numbers where you want them. And it helps the contractors do that. You know, when they enjoy working for you, they're going to sharpen that pencil because they want to come to your job site. They want to come and be there with you as a company. So, you know, that's definitely a thing for helping with winning the work in the long run. It's beneficial to the contractors as subs. It's beneficial to us, and it's beneficial to the owner. We can give them, you know, more bang for their buck, you know, so to say. So it's definitely something that it's been great for us.
Jack, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. We all know fee plays a big part in winning projects, not just the cost of the work, but the fee. And what we've realized that without these processes and technologies and platforms, they can still be done manually, and you know they have to have a person associated with them. But there's a definite trade-off from the technology platforms versus the staff or the hours needed. We can create submittal logs and lists in a matter of minutes, or you should take a project engineer, maybe potentially a couple of days, bigger job all week to get that list created. And now that's done in a matter of, honestly, you know, minutes. And so we are able to adjust our fees accordingly and be more aggressive with, you know, with using Build and this platform. So it's a big help for us as far as winning projects.
I like what you both said. Jack, you talked about saving time, creating the paperwork to help you be more successful, to win the work and reduce it. And Lance, you talked about being able to sharpen your pencil. It's helped you guys be able to know that you don't have to carry as much of an internal contingency to stay competitive, but then also to, in a way, it rewards your clients too, right? So I appreciate that. You know, Ariel, this question is for you. Is what project data have you been able to leverage utilizing the cloud-based technology?
Tyler, that's a great question. You know, it can be answered by multiple departments and what matters to them. For example, our business development team, they review data that we collect by our digital bid platform, and it helps us understand win rate, top clients, performance in different markets, and so on. This is data that they can later use to work on the company strategy and make sure that we're using the resources accordingly to the results that we're expected. But now we can also think about, let's say, project management. How is the information flowing? What's the status of documentation? Like I said earlier, RFIs, submittals, and also doing, you know, root cause analysis for issues. Another example, it's let's say for subcontractors' performance when they're providing information like closeouts. Are they being compliant with the process or not? And also, when you have all this data, it's just being able to communicate it as well, maybe through dashboards or through a way that's more visual and that everybody can stay up to date with what's happening at all times.
Okay. Thank you. It sounds like you're able to take a lot of data from it, from the RFI submittals, creating root cause analysis to improve safety, toolbox talks, things like that. That's a lot of information you're able to actually digest, where I think you guys mentioned earlier that it was hard to collect the data, digest it other than what was in one person's head, that you can now disseminate amongst a lot of people. You know, this here, it's another one for you, Ariel, is that, you know, adapting software can be hard. How did you know where to start and why did you start in that spot?
Right, Tyler. So, you know, the reality about this question is that it's associated with change, and change by nature is hard. And, you know, it doesn't matter if it's software or if it's, you know, something personal, anything that you can think about when we're changing, getting out of our status quo, it's a difficult process. But you know what's even harder? It's finding the right time to go through that change. And a couple of years ago, due to COVID, we were forced to keep the way that our business was thriving. And the pandemic hit right on, you know, what we call the bidding season. So it made pretty obvious to us what we needed to work on. So digital bids and digital signatures is what we basically targeted at that time. You know, the change was hard, that's no doubt, but what was the other option? You know, like we wanted to be successful. We needed everybody to be successful. So we needed to go there. Now, on the bright side, we were exposed to a successful implementation, and it was very, very contagious. Our staff, the clients, everybody loved it. In fact, you asked them if they will go back to web signatures or just delivering a bid, like in a physical form. And typically, the answer that you normally get, it's a no. So once we got that success, okay, we started exploring what's next. How can we improve generating specs? How can we improve our closeout process? And we were aiming for little things. I mean, kind of like going for the long-hanging fruit. And then these little wins, they gave us the confidence that we needed in order to go for a more challenging task.
Okay. So really, I mean, to use a lack of a better example, the elephant, you couldn't eat it all at once, but you took it a bite at a time, and you started with kind of the process that construction is for you as a company, is with bidding and estimating, and then you took it from there, and it snowballed into the next part, which would be into the field and so forth. And on that expansion, I kind of like to have, Jack, can you maybe elaborate how and where you eventually expanded next?
So we knew we needed to upgrade and change things and make things better in general as far as how we were delivering our projects with technology. And so we evaluated several different platforms. We had been using one, but didn't do everything we wanted to do. And so we evaluated several different platforms with the team here internally. Our innovation team got together. We did pros and cons, had demonstrations done, and we got together and decided at the end of the project, the end of the task there, to go with Autodesk Build. And that was because mainly the different how expansive it was. It did a lot of things for us at once as far as different modules, and it was a one-stop shop for us, and so that made it very appealing. Then from there, we did a project, and we'll talk more about that later. But we got into a pilot project, and it was a large project, had a variety of things, new build out of the ground, and we took build to the test as far as can it do what we needed to do with our process. We had it backed up to our server as far as what we normally would do. We kept testing it and see if it's still going to work for us. And it was supposed to go for a year and a half. We're going to try it out. When we got done, evaluated. Midway through the project, we said, you know what, this is going to work. We need to go ahead and implement this thing company-wide. And so we didn't wait for the job to get done. We went ahead and decided to make that change internally to do the company-wide.
That's pretty amazing. So really, the next step was you took it to a project. You started on the project, and you started working through it. And then you realize, hey, this could benefit all our projects, no matter what phase they're in, but we'll adjust it to those phases. And you just kind of went all in. So
yeah, that's really what happened. We thought we were going to go the whole cycle of a project, but we just realized way through, like, let's go do this.
Well, that's incredible. That's neat. So on that, what's next, Lance? I mean, from your side, what's next for taking that technology and implementing it for you guys?
Yeah, I think for us, at least, the next thing is really looking at our scheduling process, continue with lean construction and those different processes, and trying to find a software that works for us. Getting a quote unquote live schedule, right? One that is updated every day, updated every hour. I mean, as soon as somebody logs in and being able to work with that. We used to use the pole planning method where all the trades come in, you put a big old white piece of paper around the room, and everybody has their sticky notes. And, most of the time that gets rolled up, put in a corner, and nobody looks at it again, except you get your hard copy every week when you're in the meeting, in a foreman's meeting or progress meeting. So, we started to explore a software where it's every minute it's up to date. I mean, anybody can log in from anywhere again, right? So that cloud-based software of being able to do that. Trades can go in and update where they're at in each individual rooms, each individual area that we have set in that schedule. So that's really where we're pushing for that, along with continuing to evaluate our processes and how they're working for us in each software. So that, that's got to be a big thing. You can't just like throw something out there and be like, okay, we're good. I'll come back and see you in a couple of years. So we implement it. It was similar to that project Jack talked about. We were always looking at Autodesk and seeing how it was working out there. So That's one thing. And then the last one would be looking into cost modules that work with the programming that we're using now. So I think those are the three main things for us that we're looking at next.
Okay. So you mentioned scheduling, and this reminds me of when I was in the field, and I'm wondering if this happened to you, Lance, is that you walk out on the field and then you're, not to pick on any trade, I'm just a drywaller or whatever, or your HVAC contractor, and they're holding a schedule from 6 months ago.
Right.
That happened to you at all, where you've got that and then you're like, no, that's not the schedule? And how has that been influenced with technology now, like you were talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you're talking about the lost schedules or the lost paperwork, or they just didn't, maybe their superintendent didn't print them the one they needed, right? Or whoever was in charge. They're like, oh, this is the one I was given, but you said it 6 months ago. That was always a huge time of what we were looking for. Well, they can walk out right now and have that live on their iPad or live on their computer. They can look where they're supposed to be. They can see that. We still go through and it helps us print out the 4-week look ahead or look ahead work we're doing with them and giving them to them, but they can live see it every day. So, one of the other struggles was you walk into a room and maybe the electrician or the MEP was supposed to handle for the end of the week, and it's Tuesday and they're done. And now the room's sitting empty, ready to be worked on because the drywaller didn't know or the insulator didn't know. Well, that excuse kind of goes out the window now. You're really able to sit down and the electrician or the MEP can say, hey, I'm done Tuesday instead of Friday. Let's get in there with the drywallers on Wednesday. So it's that productivity, right? You can move people forward. You can work on that schedule every day, every hour if you really wanted to.
Well, that's amazing. Then, to throw this at you again too, is that I remember years ago when we first started implementing technology at my company that I was at, is that I found that now that everyone had information easily accessible, that people were getting upset that they weren't getting, an RFI came in an hour ago and they want to know why it wasn't posted to the drawings. Are you seeing anything like that at Miller Davis?
Oh, absolutely. It's the same thing as, when we were younger and everything, and our parents and everything, the news was at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. That's when you sat down and got the information. Well, what's everybody do now? It's on their cell phones, you're on social media, you're getting the answers right in front of you. So, and when you don't get it right in front of you, you wonder, where is it? You think your phone's broken. You think, oh my gosh, the technology's down. So you see that, we do have some trades, and I think no matter what you're doing, but hey, I submitted that RFI 15 minutes ago. Where's my answer? It's just the game. It's a little bit of things that happen in that. So we get comfortable with technology, we get used to the way it works, and then you want that same reaction every time.
So really, you got that. Sounds like it kind of ties back into what Jack was saying earlier, is and Ariel, is that people got excited, and that's why I was able to implement faster. Is that kind of why? Is that it was a lot easier to transition to than people thought it was going to be? Because it was easy to get the information so fast? You got Phil, Lance, or?
Yeah, I think that was a good benefit.
Go ahead, Lance, sorry.
No, you're all right, Jack. I was just agreeing that, that was a benefit for us for sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Jack. I want to hear what you have to say too.
I think over the years here at Miller Davis, we've had a lot of changes, like I said earlier, as far as software being implemented. And by far, this has been, in my opinion, the most streamlined and easiest. And that's for a few things, I think. I think we had leadership support. So, top down, we wanted to do this. We made sure we had good employee engagement. We got them excited about it. We had a dedicated innovation department manager, Ariel, who was leading the charge. And it's a great product. And all those things together make up for the great recipe. So it just takes more than just a good product, a good software. It takes a team. It takes leadership. It takes, someone dedicated to being there to answer those tough questions as far as it goes as, hey, this isn't working, what do I do? And then having that support built into your company that we're all doing this together, and that makes a difference.
I love that. Oh, go ahead, Ariel.
No, I want to add something there, Tyler. So two things. Just want to jump back to what you guys said, that we get used to getting answers like immediately. You can associate that, with like watching a movie on Netflix or streaming some music on Spotify or anything like that. Like in the past, you needed to kind of like, if you wanted to listen to a song, you needed to go to a radio station and you just needed to wait for who knows how many hours to hear that song. Nowadays, nobody's going to wait. Nobody's going to wait. They just want to press play, get the sound that they want, or just sit down and press play for the movie. Same thing is with with RFIs. It's like, okay, I want the answer immediately. No more like 7 days to get something processed. I don't know. I think it's funny how we adapt so fast to those things. Now, the other thing I wanted to say to what they're Jack and Lance were saying, success is contagious, man. Everybody wants to be successful, and one way to get our team excited is that they saw how other projects were doing, and they wanted the same thing. They wanted to be able to process closeouts so easy. They wanted to be able to create their specs as easy as well. Because when somebody's looking at that, they have to spend hours creating an Excel log, and somebody else is just doing a couple clicks and printing it right away, they can see the benefit, and that it's like, okay, I want to be able to do that because that's gonna take me to the next step with my project. So I think that play a big role as well.
Okay. I like that. I like how you said it's success is contagious. I also love how, Jack, you talked about part of that was the recipe to that success is that you had buy-in from all the way from the top down. And that was key to it, is that because everyone was on the same page, that you're able to move together as a company. So I appreciate that. Jack, I've got another question for you. I know you talked about the recipe for success a little bit, is that with this transition, is there anything else that, like, from software, your recent success and transitioning to project management, is there anything else that you'd like to share on that journey? Because I know you shared a little bit, like, that recipe, but is there anything else that you'd like to add to that, Jack?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, part of the journey is, as we moved to this thing, it's, as team members change, different things happen in life. Having the information in one spot's key. You don't have to try to figure out what files it in or what server folders you put it in. So that's something we talked about earlier, and I just want to reinforce. And then the team buy-in, as far as our journey, having those things helped out. But my advice to anyone who's considering going to the platform or changing platforms is, document your process. Understand how the paper flows, or used to flow at least, and then go find technology that will help facilitate that. Just going out and grabbing technology without understanding your process is just going to speed up the failure of the process. It's going to hit the wall faster. So just take the time, document your workflows, then go get the technology, and maybe you got to change your workflow a little bit, but make sure you do that, because if not, you could find some things that appear to be cool, flashy, and helpful, but just really aren't.
So Jack, I really appreciate how you said that, take time, because I think that's probably the hardest thing that some individuals have, is to take the time to write out the process, but also to be honest about the process, right?
Yeah, sure.
That this is what it is. And then I kind of have a question for you, is that once you've done that process, Jack, did you find that maybe a lesson learned was that having to be open to maybe a different way of doing things? Well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, being 113 years old, you kind of get set in your ways. And lately, even just last week, I wondered, why are we doing it that way? It makes no sense. But that's the way we've done it, and we've had success. And so, just open your mind to, yes, your way is good, or our way is good, but can it be better? And having that open mind can really expand the way you adopt technology, you innovate, and the way you can win more projects through better product management.
Thank you. Lance, anything you'd like to add on, as far as that transition and success?
Yeah, I mean, right. Yeah, from the field side, there's definitely a certain stigma with field personnel, right? You get your old carpenter that's been in it for years, and he came up swinging a hammer, and it reminded me of one of my old superintendents who his use of a computer was come in the morning, hit the power button. It didn't automatically turn on like his TV, so he'd smack it 6 or 7 times, close it, and walk out the door, and that was his use of a computer, right? So you're going to have that difference in the field, but you can't be afraid of that change. You can't be afraid of trying to take the next step. you know, it's, I think Ariel told me a quote one time, we were talking about it, we've all kind of heard it, is, you know, Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. So kind of ties back into what Jack was talking about. You know, trying to explore those new options that you have, the new technology that's out there, the capabilities is huge. And then I think the last thing is what we did with it was we really had the workflows defined. Again, going back to what Jack and Ariel were talking about. And when you have that workflow done and your staff can see that and they know what the next step is to do or who to contact if they don't know that next step, it makes things a lot easier. If they don't have knowledge base on how to do it and what the workflow is supposed to be, they're not going to do that work. So I think those are probably the big things from my end, especially for the field side.
Okay, I appreciate that added going through there. You know, what about you, Ariel?
Well, I think that, you know, construction, it's about building. It's not about navigating complicated software. It's not about getting your staff confused on how to access a platform or how to do something. So just keep that in mind. Make sure that you're aiming for those workflows, for that information that actually matters to them, and then, you know, give them the tools that they need. And, you know, keep in mind that, you know, we don't have everything figured out. We need to keep moving. And then you're gonna tweak it out and you're gonna make adjustments. You're gonna make that workflow is not gonna be perfect, but you need to start somewhere. And then you're gonna notice, you know, with some experience, okay, what kind of adjustments I need to make. And that's what we're doing. You know, we're rolling, we got it rolling, and now we just need to tweak, and that's how it goes.
Awesome, thank you. Anything else you guys would like to add? Last thoughts that you may have, a last piece of advice? If not, before we move on, for others that might be looking.
Well, you know, on my end, I will say that make sure that you get a team together to make decisions, think about what are the next steps, and get kind of like a shared vision. And to do that, you need to identify what's your core business and the workflows that are around it. We typically talk about this because in the past, we had other departments leading project management, like, you know, like accounting was leading how we were doing certain things. And now it's like, okay, our core business is project management. That's what we do. So how about getting other workflows to go around our needs? Once you have that, then, you know, you can start mapping your processes and discuss what are the pain points that your team has. What are the struggles? What's holding me back? Where's the waste? How can I improve my people's, you know, the resources that I have? How can I do something with less time or spending less money? And you should go into a brainstorming session where you are going to capture ideas from everybody. And this brainstorming is just going to lay down multiple paths, but you also need to be smart about it. Keep in mind that there's so many things that you can do. Like if you think about your company, there's so many things that you can improve. But like I mentioned earlier, the low-hanging fruit strategy, meaning that you can focus on easily attainable goals, is what gonna get you kind of like, you know, up and running and building that confidence with the team. That's gonna get you traction. And if you continue doing this down the road in 2-3 years, you will be surprised with the positive impact that you can generate in your company. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. That's what you got to keep in mind.
Love that, thank you. There's a lot of great advice, and I think you summed it up really well, is that this is a marathon, right? That being in business isn't a sprint, it's a marathon, and doing things right, training right, and making sure that you're doing the right things to make it to the finish. You know, with that, I think we're going to transition, because we want to make sure we've got some time for our, you know, Q&A portion to have people ask you guys questions. But before we move into that part, just kind of for a minute, I'm just going to, you know, show a couple slides here to kind of explain to some of the people here what the product is that Miller Davis has been using, which is Autodesk Build. Autodesk Build was developed to help manage from project management, quality management, project closeout, safety management, cost management, and any document management. And so this is a little sneak peek of kind of what they've been utilizing to be able to manage those RFIs that we talked about, the drawings, and be able to streamline the process, collaborate, and to hold people accountable. To take it a step further is that you can also see here is that it, with Autodesk Construction Cloud, build is a portion of it. It's our system is designed from Autodesk to take it from design conception. So if you're involved in design build, or even if you're doing in-house shop drawings and things like that, that maybe you're doing concrete lift drawings, that you can utilize a system that connects all the way through from design to quantification to actual construction, and then taking it to close out and to operations. Autodesk also connects to a variety of different things to help you with maybe some of the systems that you may have. We talked about that there's the ability to connect with things, and that there may be some systems such as accounting that you want to bring in to and connect to the system. Right here, you can see all of these different items that and tools that you can connect and keep into underneath one hat to allow you to continue to be effective and to continue that marathon pace to the finish. With that, we're going to move into our poll and Q&A, but if you want to learn more on how to connect with your project management workflows or one more work and beyond, we need to, we'll open up the poll here. I believe we've done that. And then we will allow you to get a hold of us that way, but then we'll go into our Q&A portion next. And let me open up some questions here. I'll give everyone 1 minute to do the poll if they'd like to learn more. Okay, I think we'll give it 10 more seconds, and then I've got a question for Miller Davis. Okay, this question is going to be going towards Miller Davis. This is kind of going to be Lance and maybe a little bit of Ariel. Is that how has Miller Davis integrated the coordination schedule into the project schedule? And is this part of their cloud-based software?
So, I can start with the schedule there. When we look at the coordination schedule between the trades and what we're doing, it's a little bit of a transition point right now because we have two different softwares we're using between the PM and the project management stuff and the scheduling software. But we use that for our project schedule as a whole. As soon as that project starts, a bid schedule goes out, and then once we get the trades on board, we start using that software for the whole project schedule from start to finish. So we integrate that through a separate software system currently.
Okay, thank you. And then this next one here is they have 3 questions that they ask is, can Build interface with Bluebeam? And I'll answer that portion. Yes, it can. Through our integrations 360 sync, you can have Bluebeam to be able to do your Bluebeam reviews and things like that. And the other one here, your second question is, can dashboards from different projects be pulled into a common screen so PMs can review multiple projects in one place? This can be accomplished through our Insights tool, and then also for some individuals, Power BI. And then customizable workflows. Let's see here. Handle. Yes, and so this next piece, once again, is for Autodesk, is that we do have that ability. And I think this is something that I'll have one of my counterparts, maybe respond to you in the chat, just so we can keep some questions coming towards Miller Davis. And then I think, Lance, did you answer what software you're using to integrate the schedule?
Currently, we're using a software called TouchPlan for our for the poll planning and the scheduling that we have. We start with a Microsoft project for scheduling when we do the bid phases, and then we move into the projects that we're using TouchPlan on for the poll planning.
Okay, thank you. So, while we're waiting for a couple more questions to kind of come through, I have one for you guys as well. Is that one thing that we didn't mention is that Miller Davis also self-performs a few different things. Do you guys mind kind of sharing how that strategy of not only as a general contractor, but you also self-perform, how you use that software to self-perform and with your trades a little bit?
Yeah, sure. We, our jobs our self-perform jobs use Build just as our bigger CM jobs use it. From our small projects to our industrial work, to where we're self-performing different tasks, all goes through Build. Able to do punch work and workflows through Build for them. So it's a different user group a little bit with different goals, but yet it's still been very effective, from concrete, structural steel to carpentry, all the way to CMC and CMA work.
Okay. Thank you. We've got another question in here. Is that, the question is talking about how many of your subs are using it on your projects, and what was that path like with them? Were they reluctant to join, and how has their adoption been? And I think that'd be good for Lance and Ariel to both respond to.
Yeah, so once we integrated it, it's a great software because we can invite the subs to get in as far as Autodesk, and so all of our trades have really been great with buying into it, because it is a cloud-based software. It's something that we're getting them into. It's reduces the added cost to it again. So it's been the buy-in has actually been really well. Once they got using it, saw how useful it is for them, and how quickly they can get answers and get the updated documents, whether it's a hyperlink drawing that automatically updates for bulletins and RFIs, or even with some of the software we're using for contracts and sending that out. It's so far we've had great buy-in from all the projects that are using it. So.
I think that's a great question actually. There's no point of having a platform like this if you don't have buy-in from your subs. You want to make sure that you get in your project as many stakeholders as possible, and subs obviously play a big role. Now, we're going to go back into what we talked a moment ago, which is change. And yes, you're changing the way some subcontractors are working. Sometimes you're going to run into subs that they have experience using platforms like this ones, or other cloud-based platforms, so they understand. But for those who doesn't, you need to come in and kind of like pitch the benefit that they have. Don't just enforce it. You need to walk them through and make sure that you have a kickoff where you basically show them what platform you're going to be using, how it's going to be used, and always let them know there's a person that's going to support them if they have any questions. You're going to get to the point where there's a sub, because we always have ones that they're not very tech, they're not doing a lot of things, but the solution there is not just to do something for them, because if you do that, they're never going to get their hands on it. You just need to basically sit down and provide as much support as you can, and always let them know this is how we're doing things from now on. Once they try it, they'll see the benefit. I mean, we got the same thing happened when we were doing digital signatures. Some people would just print the document and send it back to us, and we're like, no, we just need you to go to the platform and sign it. Or same thing for closeouts. They'll keep sending us physical closeouts, and I'm like, nope, you need to go to the platform. So it's going to be a process. Just make sure you have the right resources there. Make sure you have somebody that they can rely on, and that you're always communicating properly, so they know what to do.
Yeah, just to elaborate that on Ariel, you're right. That's how we've done it on all when we're doing the projects, right? We do our kickoff meeting, and then we have a meeting with all the subs and the trade contractors out there, showing them whether it's the Autodesk software or our scheduling software on how it works, and give them helplines to call or things like that. But it is showing them how to use it is a big, and showing what the workflows are on it. So not just saying do this and walking away.
One other thing you can do, Tyler, or folks can do, is put that in their front end bidding documents that they're to use this platform going forward if they're successful to win the bid.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This next question is for Ariel, which is talking about asking about, how do you utilize connections between, and if you utilize connections between build and BIM models, and if so, how and what are you doing?
Right. That's great. So we have we use BIM for different projects. We haven't had the opportunity yet to use BIM in a BIM project at the same time. But my understanding, Tyler, and I guess you can talk a little bit more about this, is that you're able to upload models and be able to visualize them right on the platform. So that could make it easier as well.
Yep. Yeah. So it takes all those native files and allows you to view it from web and from mobile, and to take those measurements and walk those. Absolutely. And this one here is, could be for Ariel as well, but is that, and I can help answer it as well, but they're asking, how can this software benefit closeout process and the transfer of information to facility and operations purposes?
That's a really good one. So closeouts, I like to say that it's one of those big elephants in the room. When we talk about closeouts, I say that the industry typically start closeout at the moment where everybody's just moving to the next job. So it's no longer exciting. And that process of getting a list of documents that we need to get from each sub, contacted them, and making sure that we can review them properly, and even providing the owner with a final package, right? It used to be such a demanding task, and it was a lot of manual process. And now we're using pipe closeouts, which basically allow us to get a list of closeouts pretty much in minutes, and then we can easily assign them online, and everything's done digitally, where we can say who owes what documents, and then they go through the system and they start uploading everything there. You can review the closeouts right on the platform, and it's streamlining that interaction. You can also set up notifications that go out there every week, so your subs know that if they're being delayed with a particular closeout. Also, we get dashboards that allows our team to review the information easily, and kind of easily see what kind of subs they need to give them a couple calls, because still we get the emails out, but it's not going to hurt to give them a call and have that communication there. So, and then at the end, once we have all the documents, this is creating like a really nice clean PDF for us that's already linked, and all the warranties, all the O&Ms, everything's there. You just need to go and pretty much provide that PDF, click, and the owner gets a nice document, versus what we were providing before, that if you go a decade ago, we were providing boxes and boxes to the owners. Eventually we turned to provide like just plain PDFs, but then by that linking, it was very manual, and we just had a person that the closeout manager back then will have to manually link all those, and now it's done automatically. So I think it's been a great process. It takes away a lot of the manual work from us.
Thank you. I think that was a great response. I don't know that I can add much to it. How you mentioned about the reports and keeping it accountable, but then also the easy export out button to put it in an organized manner to deliver to facilities. The one thing I think I would add is that for some clients, to add to it, is that they will utilize Build for the warranty process to create warranty issues and create and track items that way, to notify people. And it looks like we're out of time. I appreciate, oh, whoops, there's one question. Yeah, we are out of time. I appreciate everyone's time. So thank you so much for attending today. And I want to thank, Jack, Ariel, and Lance so much for your time in the Fireside chat we've had today. With that, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.